Chase was cute. He wasn't a 10, but he more than made up for it with his personality. We've been intermittently texting through the Bees app for 2 days, and we finally decided to meet at a restaurant for happy hour. Restaurant was nice. It had a loungy vibe, and the drinks were amazing. I was already 2 drinks in, and Chase's engaging conversation had me wrapped up in the moment. We just finished discussing the last live concerts we gone to. Appetizers had come and gone, and I was starting to look at Chase with different eyes. At the moment, he was talking about sneakers. So I took the moment to check out of the conversation and check in with myself and my feelings about the date as a whole. He'd gotten good scores so far. From the moment we set eyes on each other, it was easy. We hugged. He smelled good. He complimented my dress. He immediately took the lead to get us seated at a nice table. Check, check, check. He was doing all the things I wanted a person I was dating to do. He'd been trained well by somebody out there, and I was grateful for that. When we were seated, he made it clear that everything I ordered was on him. I appreciated the communication at the beginning of the date because I'm a progressive girly. I'm okay with splitting the check on a first date, but him being upfront made things so much less awkward. I blinked back to the present moment as he wrapped up his passionate monologue on sneakers. I gotta be honest, I said. I love your passion for sneakers, but I never got into them. I rarely wear sneakers, but I love comfortable shoes. I'm the type of person that will buy the same shoe in different colors because it's so comfortable. Then I might buy the same shoe again and again, year after year, because I love it that much. We shared a laugh, then looked at each other with goofy grins on our faces as we transitioned into another topic. By the end of the date, I was certain I wanted another one. I honestly wasn't ready to end the conversation, but we'd already had a delicious meal spread out over 2 hours, and another drink would be one too many. Chase walked me to my car and opened my door. He had that look on his face like he wanted to lean in for a kiss. I smiled to myself because I knew he was feeling me, but kissing on a first date is a bit fast for me. So I lifted my hands around his shoulders for a hug and thanked him for a great dinner before driving off with the biggest smile on my face. On my drive home, I reviewed my date. It'd been a while since I've been on a date, and Chase's strong masculine energy was addictive. I was proud of myself for sticking to my rules and not kissing him on the first date or telling him I loved him and asking how many kids were we going to have. I'm a sucker for the romantic phase. And I have been known to run headfirst into situationships with men, but all those mistakes and heartbreaks that happened when I was younger contributed to the strong woman with dating boundaries that I am today. I smiled to myself and spent a few moments reminiscing on how I'd easily get caught up in a fantasy back in my early dating days. Back then, I'd take what people said and create a perfect fantasy guy in my mind, complete with a personality, style, and backstory. That method of dating led to disappointment 100% of the time. Nobody can live up to the man of my mind. My creativity is unmatched. So, with the help of a trained professional, I was able to understand that I was addicted to the rush and high of new love. It can be a drug for me, and those mental stories I tell myself about the guy only existed to make the high last longer and become oh so much better. I could already feel myself creating a love story about Chase. I snapped out of it and resolved to put that creativity to good use to create and design a new concept when I got home. No, I'm not going to fool myself into falling in love with a stranger, no matter how long it's been. Chase watched Jackie drive off with a pleased look on his face. Jackie was hot. He couldn't believe he'd met such a dynamic woman on his first date in the new city. He'd just gotten settled into his new space after moving a couple of months ago when he matched with Jackie. Their texting wasn't too extreme before meeting up, but her vibe was positive and Chase felt she was genuine. His crazy radar had gotten rather good since getting back on the apps 2 years ago. The apps had certainly changed since he was last using them. He'd gotten too many women asking for money or trying to put him in poly situations for his liking. Everyone had their own preferences. Luckily, Jackie gave no psychopath vibes. She was elegant and feminine, similar to other women he dated, but she had this reserved nature about her that gave her a mysterious air. He was very curious to know more about what made her who she is and what went on in that careful mind of hers. Chase could tell she was cautious after she so expertly managed their departure earlier that day. She didn't even give him the chance to kiss her. Not her mouth, not her cheek, not even her hand. He knew it was a gamble, but usually he was able to get something in. He was a pretty smooth dude. He could tell that he needed to play this situation more with his brain rather than his desires. He took a beat to think if the situation were worth the effort. Why put in the work to woo this woman when he just got to this new city? He hadn't even seen what all there was out there yet, and he could easily meet a woman who was a little easier to catch. His mind was always focused on risk versus reward due to the nature of his career in risk management. Chase replays their date back in his mind. There are a lot of things he likes about Jackie. He scrolls on social media as he considers what he'll do. Beach Bash Dance Party, the flyer said. Chase's eyes went wide. Although he was new to the city, he'd already gotten tapped into the party scene via his buddy Nicholas. He'd been following this venue for a while, and their pictures always showed that they knew how to throw a party. The bash was next Friday, exactly a week away, and the beach theme guaranteed the ladies would be out in next to nothing. Chase grinned mischievously at the amazing opportunity that landed in his lap. His decision was easily made. Why waste his time pursuing the first woman he came across when there were so many other options to sample? He bought a ticket to the party and switched over to swiping on his dating app. Before bed, after creating not one, but three initial concepts for upcoming projects at work, Jackie thought about Chase and their first date. She wanted to text him and just talk to him again, but she didn't want to come on too strong. She knew it was important to let the guy initiate if that's what she wanted for their potential relationship to look like. She really hated waiting for anyone to do anything that she could easily do for herself. But she learned the hard way that if she did the work and planned all the dates, then she'd always do the work and plan the dates in the relationship. She looked at her phone, waiting for it to ping. It didn't. She checked her bonnet to make sure it was secured on her curls, then went to sleep. So, how was the date? Jackie's coworker Sabrina had walked into Jackie's office on Monday morning and taken a seat across from her as if they had a meeting planned. Jackie smiled coyly and told her about her date with Chase and how well they had connected. She ended the story by saying she definitely got vibes that he was into her too, but he never texted her since their Friday night hangout. Sabrina sighed and said, "Well, on to the next. If he hasn't contacted you by now, he clearly isn't interested in another date." Sabrina was an expert dater. She knew how to play the game, it never played her. She was very straightforward like that with every situation, not just dating. It's why Jackie and Sabrina got along so well. Jackie was always willing to take her time to gather evidence, understanding the reason behind everything, while Sabrina let the results of any given situation speak for itself. Their complementary dynamic made for some very good ads for their company's clients. "Well, since you aren't all booed up, come with me to the beach bash party on Friday," Sabrina said with a glint in her eye. "I've been trying to get you to come to Club 22B for the longest time. Their theme parties are always fun." It was true. Sabrina had invited Jackie to no less than 5 themed parties at Club 22B, and Jackie had said no every single time because it was a club that played primarily house music and charged a hefty cover for the DJ, and Jackie wasn't much into synthetic tunes. "You know how I feel about that place," Jackie said. "I'll think about it. I did just get this cute mesh cover up." Yes, Sabrina encouraged. You don't even need to go shopping for the theme. It's the perfect time to check the spot out. Okay, Jackie said with slight hesitation. I'll go. It'll be exciting to have something to look forward to at the end of the week, even if it wasn't the second date with Chase that she'd hoped for. Chase's week went by quickly. He was starting to have a better grip on his role with his team at work. And while he had the same position before moving, he hadn't had a team this large that worked together like a well oiled machine like this. The larger team and more challenging projects was one of the reasons he moved, and he was glad he could finally see the potential for him to do good work in this new environment. He pulled out his phone while at his desk in between meetings to check for new matches. His swiping on the dating apps hadn't yielded much in terms of concrete dates, but he'd had some good interactions. Just no one he wanted to ask on a date. He smiled thinking about the party he'd attend that night. He was sure he'd meet a nice woman or two that he could ask out. It'll be interesting to see how the club scene is in this city. He grabbed his portfolio and headed to his next meeting. The lights, they were spectacular. They made the venue look like he'd just walked into a huge concert. The dance floor was spacious. The bars were located all around in an L shape with the seating section on the other side of the bars. The dance floor took up most of the space and it was sunken down a couple of steps so that the views from the bars were the best places to see the action on the dance floor. From his vantage point near the bar, Chase could see the bodies moving all around. The DJ was on stage blasting the rhythmic tunes that made Chase want to move his body. After taking in the space, Chase got to his mission of checking out the hot girls in their bikinis, see through mesh dresses, and wait, was that a woman in a thong? Chase had kept his outfit simple. He was wearing a white shirt and light blue swim trunks with flamingos on them. He had a pair of sunglasses hanging on the side of his shirt. He slowly walked up to the bar while scoping the scene, and the view was everything he wanted to see. Chase gets to the well staffed bar and is able to get the bartender's attention immediately. He orders a rum and coke, then spontaneously says, and another of what she's having, to the bartender while looking at the backside of this sexily dressed woman on his right. He could only see her back length blonde hair, the back of her sparkly bikini top, and her very short jean shorts that allowed him to see the curve of the underside of her butt. She was looking at something on her right and bouncing her butt to the music. Chase hoped she'd turn around and give him some of her time. The woman turned, looked him up and down, then smiled at him. She said, another mojito, please, to the bartender before focusing her green eyes back on Chase. He made eye contact with the woman and his heart dropped immediately to his stomach. He knew her. She was one of the women he'd matched with on the Bees app a while ago. He ended up blocking her. Melanie, that was her name. He remembered her vividly because she'd seemed interested in him at first, but after talking for a while, she came off as someone who just wanted a boyfriend to buy her things and take her on expensive dates. She got pushy and acted like a brat when he said no to buying her a tennis bracelet as a gift when they hadn't even met yet. Some guys were into that, but not Chase. He forced a smile back as the bartender went to make their drinks. He engaged in pleasantries, all the while seeking an out. Luckily, she didn't seem to remember him. She seemed genuinely into him, even leaning closer to speak more closely into his ear. It was proving tough to extricate himself without seeming offensive. Chase endured the hand on his arm and close contact. He accepted it as punishment for his rushed actions. The drinks finally arrived and he paid with cash, letting Melanie know it was nice to meet her. He walked away to the other side of the bar, closer to the dance floor. She followed, saying, let's dance, in a tipsy voice. He smiled politely, downed his drink, and said, I'll be right back. Jackie ties her sarong around her orange one piece bathing suit with cutouts at the side. She was very late to the beach bash party because she never shows up on time to parties. She loved making a late entrance so she could see and be seen as she walked in the door. She planned to meet Sabrina in the parking lot so they could walk in together, so she hurried to put the finishing touches on her outfit in the form of gold bamboo earrings and a gold pouch for her wallet, and headed out the door to her waiting Uber. Jackie was definitely feeling herself as she stepped out of her Uber. She looked good, smelled good, but most of all, she felt good. There's something about stepping out for the first time in a while that excites a woman. Jackie felt like tonight was her night, and no matter what, even if the music sucked, even if she didn't meet anyone new, or even if Sabrina bailed, she was going to have a good time. She was going to have a magical night at that club no matter what. Sabrina texted Jackie as she looked at her phone. "You here?" The message read. "Outside," she texted back as she scanned the parking lot for her bestie. Sabrina walked up a few moments later. She was dressed in a neon bikini with a jean skirt and a sun hat on top of her braids. "Oh my God, you look so good," Jackie exclaimed. "You too, sis," Sabrina responded. "We're going to have the best time tonight. I'm so glad you came." She bopped around to the music she could hear coming from the inside and said, "Okay, what's the game plan for tonight? Are you trying to meet someone new? Do you want to dance and have a girls' night or something else?" Jackie considered this. Honestly, she was there for a good time. She wouldn't be mad if she met someone new, but it wasn't a particular goal of hers. She threw up her arms and said, "YOLO, baby. Whatever happens, I'm here for it. Shall we?" she said. "It's beautiful in here," Jackie thought as she wound through the crowd and headed to the bar with Sabrina. As she looked around, she saw a few people she knew from around the city. They were dancing energetically to the rhythmic tunes. She made mental notes to go say hello after she scoped the scene. The bar was nice. It was spacious, and they had no problem ordering 2 shots of tequila. The two ladies looked at each other with sparkles in their eyes and shouted, "YOLO!" over the sound of the loud music. One more shot later, and they were ready for the dance floor. Jackie led Sabrina onto the dance floor as she did her best to do her signature two-step to the non-hip hop music. After a while, she got into the groove and let the excitement of the crowd get to her. She jumped and waved her hands along with everyone else as the beat built up, then dropped down with a crescendo and different, funkier beat. She even tried to do some fancy footwork like she used to do back in college. She and Sabrina began a little dance battle amongst themselves as they roared with laughter. Chase walked out of the restroom right into Melanie. She was looking at him eagerly, as if he hadn't spent 15 minutes scrolling in the bathroom stall, hoping she'd wander off and forget about him. Chase sighed and said, "How about that dance?" resigning himself to a night of hanging with someone he knew he wasn't into. Melanie was energetic on the dance floor. Chase, not so much. He hadn't actually planned to dance at the party. It just wasn't his forte. It wasn't Melanie's either, but that did not stop her from jerking and flailing off beat as the beat dropped. Chase tried to match her rigorous dancing, but eventually gave up and did his own little shuffle as she was seemingly in her own world. He looked around as he danced and glanced up to the bar, regretting having ever bought that drink when he saw the most beautiful woman he'd ever laid eyes on. "Girl, I gotta take a breather," Jackie said. "It's been a while since I danced like this." She left the dance floor and headed over to the water station. As she sipped her water, she watched Sabrina break it down with one of the people dancing nearby. She chuckled to herself as she scanned the crowd. There were all kinds of people in the club, all races, people who were clearly from the LGBTQIA community, and even some people who looked to be in their 60s. Most of them were in costume having a good time. She then understood why Sabrina wanted her to try the place out. It was good vibes in there. She continued to scan the crowd while sipping her water, and she locked eyes with a guy who looked familiar. She smiled at him. It took a few moments for her inebriated brain to recognize his face. When she did, her eyebrows raised. Chase, he's here. And he's with some blonde woman? Well, why is he staring at me if he's with her? Before she could even think about it too hard, Cedric, one of the friends she spotted earlier, came over to say hello. Girl, who was that man staring at you? He exclaimed after hugs and mutual exclamations of, It's been too long. He all up in your face. Do you know him? I quickly laughed it off and said, Yeah, he's cool. He probably just wants to say hey. I quickly changed the subject to ask Cedric if anything new was happening in his life. He was the last person I wanted in my dating business. He'd tell the story around town, and with him telling it, Chase would be my secret lover and father of my unborn child. Ever the dramatic one, Cedric responds to my question by telling me the theatrics of the night. Apparently, there had been a fight at the club earlier. Security seamlessly stepped in to stop the fight before it even started. Cedric had all the details and even the backstory on why the two men in the love triangle started fighting in the first place. He told the story in an animated half yell that made Jackie laugh so hard she started crying. Sabrina came and the story had to be retold again with even more dramatics. By the end of the second retelling, all three were doubled over in laughter. Jackie was wiping her eyes when she heard someone behind her call her name. She's here? And she's alone? Chase maintained eye contact with Jackie while still dancing with Melanie. I gotta go and talk to her. Just then, a tall, shirtless, muscular man went up to Jackie and engulfed her in a huge hug. Okay, maybe not alone. Chase watches the animated conversation going down with regret in his heart. It could be him cozied up to that sexy woman in the orange bathing suit that hugged her body just right. Not this handsome loser who kept leaning closer to her to speak in her ear. Hello! Chase snapped back to Melanie, who was waving a hand in front of his face. She used that hand to bop him in the forehead before walking away with attitude. Chase stared after her, thinking, That's all I had to do to get rid of her? Chase immediately walked over to where Jackie was standing, now with another woman and the man that had captured her attention. They were laughing at something that probably wasn't that funny at all. He decided it was now or never. He needed to tell her how beautiful she was and how stupid he was, and how he just wanted another chance with her. He tapped her on the shoulder. Chase was looking at her with stars in his eyes. Chase, good to see you, Jackie said. Upon hearing the name of the intruder, Sabrina's ears perked up. Jackie, aren't you going to introduce us to your friend? Jackie introduced Chase to Cedric and Sabrina. Sabrina, ever the petty one, asked, And how do you two know each other? With her eyebrows raised knowingly. Jackie narrowed her eyes at her and said, We met online and went on a date the other day. Oh, Sabrina said, staring directly at Chase. Did the date go well? Yes, it was great, Chase responded sheepishly, and Sabrina hit him with the line that Jackie knew she would. So why didn't you hit my girl up after the date then? Chase's smile fell, and he looked at Jackie with a serious face. That's what I came over here to talk to you about. Do you have a moment? I'd like to explain myself. Talkative Cedric was quiet for once, no doubt recording every facial expression, nuance, and piece of conversation for a detailed retelling later. Ever the protective friend, Sabrina grabbed Jackie's hand to lead her away from Chase, saying, Actually, we were about to head to the dance floor. Ugh, this is getting messy, Jackie thought. Seeking to end the drama and give Cedric less to talk about, she smiled at Sabrina and said, It's okay. I'd like to hear what he has to say. I'll catch up with y'all later. She hugged her friends and nodded to Chase, and he led her towards the exit doors. Chase smells good. Jackie instantly noticed once they'd gotten close together and away from all the sensory stimulus inside the club. She was glad to see him despite the awkward situation in the club and not having received a call or text from him following their date. She'd liked his energy. It wasn't the first time she'd been ghosted and knew it may not be the last, but she really appreciated getting closure. Jackie was curious about what Chase had to say. She wondered if it'd be an excuse or apology or something else altogether as she looked up at him in the dim streetlight just outside the club. He was scrunching his face as if trying to find the words to say something. She wanted to interrupt his hyperventilating brain and tell him to spit it out already, but decided to be patient while he worked it out. I have no excuse. I can't tell her I know I messed up as soon as I saw her tonight. What if I tell her I'd meant to call, but. But what? But I'm an idiot? How about the truth? Well, Jackie, truth is, I thought I could do better, but I was horribly mistaken. Chase sighed. He was standing out under the streetlight, frowning with his hand on his forehead, trying to work out how to tell Jackie that he wanted a second date, and a third, and as many as she would let him take her on to get to know each other. She was standing there looking a little bored, but sexy as hell in her orange jumpsuit. He started to speak and just let the words flow. Thank you for coming out here, Chase said. I know you were enjoying the party, but I wanted to come explain myself. I should have called you after our date. Jackie interrupted and said, Hey, it's okay. Sometimes dates don't work out for one reason or another. Don't let Sabrina's teasing make you feel obligated to like me when you don't. No, Chase said quickly. I like you. I'm really into you. He sighed then and slapped his hand over his eyes. I just never thought I'd find someone as beautiful as you on my first date in this new city. I thought you were too good to be true, so I didn't even try to pursue you. I was already convinced things would go badly for me. But I realized as soon as I saw you in the club tonight that I'd made a huge mistake. Jackie's face was blank as she listened to Chase. She had been ready to hear the same BS story she'd heard time and time again, the same one men would give when they wanted something she wasn't willing to give that easily, and they weren't willing to try to get to know her. Sorry, we're not in the same place. You're great, but I'm not looking for commitment. Sorry, I'm not ready for blah, blah, blah. Instead, Chase shocked her with this thoughtful confession. Chase watched Jackie's face as she processed what he had said to her. It went from blank to confused to open and vulnerable and happy. Was that a smile? He had to keep going. Music from inside the club drifted outside. It was a slower song, signaling the party was almost over. Will you dance with me? He blurted. He extended his hand towards her, and she took it while putting her other hand on his upper shoulder. They swayed there for a bit with her chuckling softly. Chase pulled back, looking into Jackie's eyes, and said, Will you go out with me tomorrow night? I'd love to have another chance with you. She doesn't answer. Instead, she pulls his face down to hers and kisses him. It was sweet, at first, but after feeling how well their lips fit together, she deepened the kiss and they stayed like that for a while. Long enough for the music to end. Long enough for the partygoers to start exiting the building. And long enough for Cedric to spot them and say, Yes, girl, get your man.